Imagine walking into your local grocery store and seeing shelf after shelf completely empty. No rice, no sugar and salt, no coffee or flour, not a single item left to feed your family through the weekend. And this isn't happening in a war-torn country or a developing nation. It's happening right here, in the United States of America. Since early 2024, prices on basic dried foods in the U.S. have surged by an average of 27%, according to the USDA. Droughts have scorched key agricultural states. Global supply chains remain fractured. Import tariffs have squeezed access to essential ingredients. And, quietly, panic buying has begun, not with screaming headlines, but with silent, empty aisles. Staples like oats, beans, powdered milk, and even species are vanishing faster than stores can restock them. What used to be dependable, cheap, and always available has become a guessing game. Will it be there next week? Will it ever be again? This is not a warning for someday. It's a snapshot of today, and a glimpse into a future where even shelf-stable survival foods are no longer guaranteed, if you still have the chance to buy these 15 items that will be mentioned in the video below. Do it now, because when the last bag is gone, it won't just be a product that disappears, it will be your ability to feed your family through the next crisis. This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Number 1. White rice? How did even rice become a luxury thing for us now? For years, white rice stood in the background, unnoticed but essential. It waited in every pantry, every food bank, every school kitchen, a plain, affordable comfort, the food you could always count on when everything else ran out. But that quiet safety net is now coming undone. In the last decade, the price of white rice has climbed over 70%. Just this past year, it jumped another 38%. Droughts in Asia, export restrictions, fertilizer shortages, and shipping delays have all collided. In the aisles of discount grocery stores across Arkansas, Ohio, and New Mexico, customers now find handwritten signs out of stock check again next week. But the week comes, and the shelves are still bare. In town, farmers walk 3 extra blocks hoping to find one bag on clearance. A food pantry in Illinois switched from handing out bags of rice to giving scoops. Carefully counted and rationed, just enough to last 3 days. If you stretch it, what once served as a safety stash is vanishing. White rice has now become another disappearing act in this slow-burning crisis. People are not just losing food, they're losing the belief that they will be okay if things get worse. And while low-income families quietly scrape together what they can, upscale markets in urban areas still display rows of imported jasmine and basmati, some selling for $15 or more. The divide feels wider now than ever. This is no longer about preferences. This is survival, rationed by the pound. And when rice, one of the most reliable emergency staples, slips away, it raises a deeper fear what comes after. How close are we to the edge? Number 2, dried beans. What do you fall back on when even a handful of beans has become too expensive to bring home each week? For decades, dried beans have been the quiet champions of survival, humble and unassuming, the meal of the working class, of the elderly, of students scraping by. And yet in 2025, even this humble food is slipping away. The numbers paint a quiet tragedy. Prices have jumped 42% over the past year. National stockpiles are at their lowest in more than a decade. Mexico, once a primary supplier, has tightened exports. At the same time, demand from Europe has surged, another ripple effect of global disruption. But none of that matters to those single mothers who just spent the last of her gas money and have $7 left to feed her kids. They stare at a bag of beans that could feed them for 3 nights. Then pick up a cheaper loaf of bread. In Arizona, a tight-knit Latin American community has begun sharing parcels of dried beans sent from back home. At food banks in Nevada, volunteers whisper to each other, "No more lentils this week." They offer canned soup instead. Twice the salt, half the nutrition, beans once gave people a way out. They were the healthy alternative when meat became too expensive. They filled bellies without breaking the budget. But now, those who once turned to beans for self-reliance are being left with less. Instant noodles, dollar store snacks, meals that keep you full but eat away at your health. And while the working poor ration the last handfuls. High-end markets in wealthier neighborhoods are stocked with imported legumes. Labeled organic protein blends at $7 a pound. Healthy living stores open new branches, yet across the freeway. Someone is making dinner from a box and boiling tap water. A bag of beans used to mean you still had options. You could make it stretch, you could cook from scratch and feel human, but as prices rise and supply shrinks, beans become a measure of how close the poor are to losing that last bit of control over their meals. Number 3, flour. The cheapest tool for self-reliance is now vanishing from shelves across the American South. At first glance, a bag of flour may not seem like much, but to millions of Americans, it has meant a loaf of bread baked at home, a pie crust made with pride. Even when the fridge was nearly bare, flour wasn't just an ingredient, it was a quiet form of survival. In 2025, that survival is slipping away. The price of flour has jumped 31% over the past year. Extreme weather has crushed wheat yields across the plains, and commercial farms are cutting production. Over 20 major grocery chains across southern states have begun limiting flour purchases. At checkout lines in Arkansas and Georgia, shoppers now see limit 1 bag per household for an older living on food stamps. A $4.50 bag of flour now demands second thoughts. For families that used to bake their own bread because they could not afford processed meals, it means letting go of the last affordable option. It stings harder knowing who gets to keep baking. In some neighborhoods, boutique bread shops sell sourdough for $9 a loaf. Meanwhile, the working class are being priced out of their own traditions. In Kansas, once the heart of American wheat country, mothers are rewriting their recipes. No more biscuits, no more homemade bread. Just substitutions rice, cornmeal, or store-bought loaves that fall apart in your hands. In schools, baking classes are being replaced with theory lessons. No flour this semester, a teacher quietly explains. And it is not just food that vanishes when flour disappears. It is the ability to create, to care, to pass something on. In Alabama, a factory worker says she has not baked in months. I used to make birthday cakes for my kids. She says, now I light a candle in a frozen cupcake and hope it's enough. Flour was just about holding on, and if even that slips through our fingers, what are we really being told about who gets left behind? Number 4, sugar. Can you believe that sugar, once cheaper than water, now feels like a luxury that few can afford today? For generations, sugar has meant more than sweetness. It carried memories and small joys. A birthday cake made with love, a warm cup of tea at night, a few teaspoons stirred into jam, wrapped as gifts for neighbors. These moments built comfort into hard lives, but now, even those moments are being priced out of reach. In 2025, the price of sugar has surged nearly 50%. Extreme weather has slashed sugarcane harvests globally. Brazil, one of the world's largest producers, is diverting sugarcane into ethanol production. Meanwhile, U.S. imports have dropped significantly, leaving domestic sugar more scarce and more expensive. A retired couple in Arkansas says they have not baked in months. We used to make cookies every Sunday. Just like my mother did, the woman shares. Now, I stand in front of the sugar aisle and feel like I'm saying goodbye to my past. Schools in Mississippi have stopped offering sweet snacks in the afternoons. Community bake sales have disappeared. It is not just sugar that's missing. It is the last trace of shared joy. And while working families give up their small luxuries, upscale grocery stores still line their shelves with imported confections and organic cane sugar, priced at 5 times the cost. There's a deep ache in knowing that a sweet moment, once common to all, is now rationed by income. In Iowa, an elderly man stares at his empty sugar tin. For years, his routine was simple: a warm cup of tea before bed, always with 1 spoonful. That nightly comfort is gone. His food stamps no longer stretch to cover sugar after milk and eggs. Sugar has never been about indulgence. It was a way to hold on to tenderness in a rough world, and as it fades from kitchens, so does something else. A sense of warmth, of care, of sweetness we believed would always be there. If even sugar must now be weighed by the spoon, How much longer can we pretend life is still sweet for everyone? Number 5. Salt. Why is no one talking about salt? The simplest element for survival is slipping away for centuries. Salt has kept people alive. It preserved food before refrigeration, healed wounds, and gave taste to the plainest of meals. It was so essential, so abundant, that few ever questioned its place in the kitchen. But in 2025, even salt is becoming scarce, and the silence around it feels more unsettling than the shortage itself. Demand is rising, yet U.S. salt production plants are operating below capacity. The reasons are painfully familiar: labor shortages, surging transportation costs, and a growing diversion of supply toward industrial use. The result? Rising prices. And in many rural areas, weeks of out-of-stock signs at the grocery store. The consequences are hitting hardest in places least equipped to adapt. Families who preserve food at home, with canning vegetables, salting meat, pickling roots, they now find themselves unable to store food for the winter. Elderly residents on fixed incomes can no longer flavor their meals, relying instead on bland, soft foods. And for remote communities, a jar of salt was never just seasoning. It was part of the survival plan. In West Virginia, a local food relief center used to give 2 bags of salt per household each month. This May, they could only offer 1 small pouch for every 3 families. In an Arkansas school cafeteria, kitchen staff were told to cut back on salt because the storeroom was almost empty. Without salt, preservation becomes impossible. Nutrition suffers. Even basic taste is lost, and people are pushed, silently, toward dependence on processed meals, on overpriced sauces, on food they can no longer make or store themselves. Salt was always small, cheap, taken for granted. But maybe that was the illusion all along, because when even a pinch of salt disappears from the poor man's table, who still believes in equal survival? Number 6. Dried pasta. Do you know that the cheapest, fastest meal will be the first to vanish when crisis hits? Dried pasta used to be the one thing you could count on. $1 a box staple that made sure no one in the family went to bed hungry. Quick to cook, easy to store, and comforting in its simplicity. Just a warm bowl of noodles could buy you peace on a bad day. But in 2025, even pasta is disappearing. Wheat prices have hit record highs. Global harvests have shrunk. And factories that once produced bulk pasta now prioritize premium lines, such as gluten-free, protein-enhanced, organic exports. As a result, low-cost dried pasta, the kind that stocked food banks and dollar stores, is being quietly pushed out of supply chains. A mother of 3 in Tennessee said, "I used to cook a big pot of pasta every Sunday. Now I split 1 box between 2 meals." In central Ohio, grocery chains have started replacing basic elbow macaroni with imported tricolor spirals at more than twice the price. Sales flyers no longer list pasta as a budget buy. In many stores, the shelves are simply bare. For workers on the night shift, for students living alone, for families stretched thin. Pasta meant more than food. It meant control. It meant knowing you could make something warm, filling, and familiar, even when the rest of life was spinning out of reach. And now that lifeline is cracking, the most affordable meals are always the most fragile, and when they begin to vanish, the emotional toll is heavy. No more quick fixes after a long day. No more $5 dinners that felt like home. Just substitutes canned soup, processed noodles, snacks pretending to be dinner. If even dried pasta, the food that filled millions of working-class plates, is being priced out and pushed aside. What does that say about whose hunger still matters? Number 7. Rolled oats. If oats disappear, what will you eat for breakfast when all you have left in your wallet is $3? Rolled oats used to be the quiet companion of the working-class morning. Cheap, nutritious, warm. For just 30 cents. You could have a bowl that filled the belly and softened the start of a hard day. It was breakfast for the elderly, for kids before school, for tired parents who needed something simple to count on. But now, even that small comfort is slipping away. Oat prices have soared over 60% in just a few months. Canada, America's biggest oat supplier, saw its harvest collapse due to severe weather. Climate disruption, combined with supply chain imbalance and panic buying, has pushed rolled oats out of reach for many. Some suburban stores have begun pulling oats from shelves entirely, and what used to be a $2 staple is now selling for nearly $5, when it's available at all. An elderly man in Ohio said he used to eat oats every morning to help manage his inflammation. Now he has to choose buy breakfast or refill his heart medication. In Missouri, Care Home replaced oats with dry crackers for its seniors, and in low-income apartment complexes in New Jersey, migrant workers now start their days with coffee alone and stale white bread. Breakfast was never just about food, it was about rhythm. And when rolled oats vanish, it is not just nutrition that disappears. It's the entire start of the day. The quiet belief that you could still begin again. It's not that oats are gone from America, it's that they're gone from the kitchens of those who need them most. When something as simple as oatmeal becomes too expensive to begin your day, is it just a food crisis now? And if breakfast, the most essential part of the day, no longer feels possible, how are we supposed to make it through the rest? Number 8, powdered eggs. A fresh egg may be expensive, but soon, even powdered eggs will be gone. Powdered eggs were never glamorous and perched, but for millions of working-class families, they were the quiet hero of the kitchen. No refrigeration needed. Shelf-stable for months. A spoonful could become breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Scrambled, baked, folded into pancakes, stirred into soups. In homes where the fridge was often near empty, powdered eggs offered one last bit of flexibility. That flexibility is now crumbling. Since March, more than 2,000 grocery stores across the U.S. have reported severe shortages of powdered eggs. The reasons come from every direction: rising poultry feed costs, labor shortages, and an increasingly fragile processing sector where small producers cannot keep up with demand or costs. Most have stopped supplying powdered eggs for retail entirely, diverting what little remains to bulk buyers and large-scale food corporations. For many low-income households, powdered eggs were not a backup. They were the plan. A mother of 3 in Kentucky said, "I used to make everything with it. Now I haven't seen a can in over a month." In rural Nevada, shelves have stayed empty for weeks. In small-town bakeries, budget-friendly recipes are being scrapped. Community kitchens in urban neighborhoods now struggle to serve the same number of meals each day. And it's not just meals that are disappearing. With the loss of powdered eggs, entire traditions begin to erode: a child's birthday cake, grandma's cornbread recipe, the Friday night omelet shared after a long shift. A single missing ingredient begins to unravel what once felt like home. Yet high-end grocery chains still line their shelves with pasture-raised, organic, omega-3 eggs, sold by the dozen at luxury prices. The divide grows sharper with every empty shelf in a corner store and every limited stock sign taped to bulk bins. Meanwhile, industrial bakeries still have access to powdered eggs, producing packaged goods that get sold back to the same families now unable to bake for themselves. Powdered eggs were more than food. They were a symbol of control in the midst of uncertainty. If even that is gone, what remains for the families trying to survive on less? Number 9, cornmeal. Cornmeal was once the food of the poor. Now, even the poor can no longer afford it. 4 generations. Cornmeal meant survival. A skillet of cornbread on a winter night. A bowl of corn porridge when the fridge was bare. It wasn't just food, it was tradition, resilience, and memory passed down in every bite. But this year, even cornmeal is slipping away. Prices have jumped 27%. Harvests have shrunk due to droughts, pests, and unpredictable weather. And much of the highest quality corn is being exported for profit, leaving shelves in American stores half-stocked and overpriced. In Mississippi, a food pantry halted cornmeal distribution in April. In rural Alabama and Kentucky, prices have nearly doubled, yet bags vanish within days. Families who once relied on it now stretch meals thinner, or switch to less nutritious substitutes. An elderly woman in Georgia, who's baked cornbread since childhood, says quietly, "Now I use store-bought white bread. It's cheaper. Cornmeal wasn't just filling, it was rooted. It held cultural memory and nutritional value, and when something that symbolizes self-sufficiency becomes hard to reach, It's a signal that something sacred is being erased from the tables of those who held on the longest. Number 10. Powdered milk. Is this still the richest country in the world? If even children must go to sleep with an empty stomach, powdered milk was never luxury. It was quiet, dependable, and essential. For families with nothing else in the fridge, it was the last line of nutrition. A scoop for a toddler before school, a warm glass for an aging parent at night, a way to make porridge, bake simple cakes, or stretch meals just a little further. But in the last 18 months, the price has surged more than 55%. Global shortages, soaring fresh milk costs, and collapsed imports have made powdered milk harder to find and harder to afford. Across small towns and food pantries, shelves sit empty. Many have stopped distributing it entirely. A single mother in Arizona now adds extra water to every bottle. Her child sleeps more, eats less, cries more. In Vermont, community centers no longer stock powdered milk for seniors. They ask for it, a volunteer says, but we have nothing left. This isn't about preference, it's about survival. And when powdered milk, the last layer of protection, starts vanishing, the damage is not theoretical. Children lose weight, elderly lose strength, the future loses its footing. And when a child begins drinking water instead of milk because there's nothing else, what does that say about the country they're growing up in? Number 11. Instant coffee. The craving for morning coffee may soon turn into an endless kind of longing. For many, instant coffee was never about taste. It was about routine, resilience, and survival. One scoop stirred into hot water before a night shift. One plastic cup clutched by a trembling hand during a sunrise in silence. For the elderly, it brought comfort. For the exhausted, it brought clarity. And for those living alone, it was often the only warm thing in the room. But now, even that is slipping away. Coffee prices have risen over 53%. Failed harvests in Brazil, corporate production cuts from companies like Nestlé, and global shipping delays have triggered a steep, silent shortage. More than 30 states now report persistent gaps in instant coffee supply. A retired man in Iowa says, "I'm not asking for much. Just a cup each morning to keep the routine." He now stretches one jar across 3 weeks. In Arkansas, a trucker working overnight says he hasn't seen his usual brand for over a month. It's not luxury, he says. It's survival. Those who once found strength in a 10-cent cup are now left with alternatives they cannot afford, or none at all. Meanwhile, cold brews and imported espresso capsules flow into premium aisles, untouched by the hands that built the morning. Coffee, to them, was never indulgence. It was the last warm ritual of a shrinking life. And when that ritual disappears, the morning becomes heavier, the hours longer, and the silence between sips unbearable. Number 12. Dry soup mixes. When even dry soup mix, the backup plan of backup plans, starts disappearing, something deeper is unraveling. Dry soup mix was never glamorous, but it was fast, familiar, and comforting. For the elderly who can no longer stand at the stove, for students in small dorms, for those too tired to cook after double shifts, it was a 5-minute solution. Just water, a spoon, and something warm to hold on to. But now, even that lifeline is thinning. Prices have jumped 29%, and many supermarkets have quietly pulled low-cost brands off the shelf. Manufacturers are prioritizing more profitable premium lines, while labor shortages and ingredient delays stretch production thin. A widowed man in Tennessee says he used to end his day with soup and 2 slices of bread. Now there's nothing left I can cook on my own. He says, in Pennsylvania, soup mix once handed out with medication at a local clinic is now replaced by dry crackers, less nutrition, less warmth, in this economy. Dry soup wasn't just food, it was dignity, a quiet bowl that asked for nothing but hot water, and returned a feeling of care. Now, even that bowl is disappearing. And as the system reorients itself to serve margins instead of people, the very act of feeding oneself quickly, cheaply, With dignity has become harder for those with the least time, strength, or help. If dry soup ever saved your dinner, you're weak. Or your sense of control. We want to hear your story. Tell us what it meant before it, too. Is gone. Number 13, bouillon cubes. A single bouillon cube could turn water into soup now. Even that feels out of reach. For decades. Bouillon cubes were a silent miracle in poor kitchens, a way to fake flavor when meat was unaffordable. Just one cube transformed boiled greens into a meal, gave plain rice a backbone, or made sick children feel like they were eating something real. But today, these tiny helpers are vanishing. Disruptions in global supply chains have slowed gelatin and base spice imports from China and India. Domestic producers are scaling back. In dollar stores and small-town groceries, bouillon cubes are out of stock and not expected back soon. A night shift janitor in Michigan shared, "I never had enough for meat, but bouillon made my daughter think I was still cooking with care." That illusion that love still had taste is now crumbling. Bouillon was small, invisible in most shopping carts. But for millions, it was the only thing standing between a warm meal and the emptiness of plain boiled water. And in the kitchens where every dollar is stretched, where one pot feeds four, and where pride is mixed with every spoonful. The disappearance of a single cube can echo louder than anyone expected. Number 14, jerky. The food that could survive any crisis now can't survive this one. Jerky once lived in glove boxes, lunch pails, and backpacks. It was a worker's protein dry, packed with calories. And good for days. Truckers, day laborers, and people sleeping in their cars all counted on jerky when there was no time to cook and no place to store perishables. Now it's disappearing. Beef shortages, sky-high electricity bills for drying ovens, and shuttered small producers have driven jerky prices up over 65%. In towns across Arizona and Nevada, only imported luxury brands remain priced for tourists. Not workers, a long-haul driver said. Jerky and a piece of bread, that's how I ate all week. Now I can't afford either. For many like him, losing jerky is not about preference. It's about losing the only meal that fit inside a pocket. And when portable protein becomes too costly to carry, the ones on the road, on scaffolding, or in factory lots are left with air in their hands and hours until the next meal, a future that grows colder, quieter, and harder to stomach with each passing day. Number 15, freeze-dried meals. Emergency meals designed to save lives are now locked behind paywalls. Freeze-dried meals used to be the great equalizer, a backup plan for anyone facing power outages, flooding, or lost income. Toss a few into a cabinet, and you had food security. Not luxury, just survival. Now, they've become specialty goods, with prices up 70%, brands vanishing from stores, and many items sold exclusively online with limits. Emergency meals are no longer available to the people who need them most. A 75-year-old woman in a mobile home park said, "I used to keep 10 meals for storm season. This year, I could only buy 2. For those without credit cards, internet access, or bulk buying privileges, the door has quietly closed." And as suburban bunkers fill with cases of premium survival food, families sleeping in trailers or moving from job to job are left with nothing but tap water and old bread. The shelves may still look full somewhere, but in kitchens without options, the quiet absence of freeze-dried meals marks something deeper, the slow vanishing of the last safety net in a country once known for its abundance. You cannot stop a crisis once it begins, but you can prepare for it while there's still time. This list isn't meant to scare you. It's a warning bell, quietly ringing before the silence gets louder. Each item disappearing from your shelf is not just about food. It's about the vanishing of security, of choice, of dignity. We've watched once affordable basics turn into rarities. We've heard the voices of seniors stretching their meals, parents watering down milk, workers giving up their last warm breakfast. These aren't distant stories. They're happening now. In towns just like yours, you still have time, but not much. Take this list seriously. If even a few items are still on your store shelves, grab them. Stock wisely. Share with your neighbors. And most importantly, speak up. How many of these items have you found? Which ones are already gone where you live? Let us know in the comments below, because one voice, raised early, could help hundreds avoid hunger later. This is not panic, it's preparation. And those who prepare together, endure together.